Oh, we're turning our attention now to the economy, and we're going to talk about perhaps what the politicians will have to do to ensure that the economy improves when they come into office, and how far the current administration has fared in trying to manage the economy. Where are we in terms of our economy? And joining me to discuss this now is Dr. Ogho Okiti, who is the CEO of Time Economics Limited. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Where would you say we are when it comes to the economy? We knew that at some point we were in a recession. We know that we have since left the recession. We have grown somewhat. Yes, our growth is still somewhat fragile, but we seem to have made progress from where we are. Well, how would you say that has trickled down to people so that they can feel it? Where would you say that we really are in terms of that?
Okay, let me try and give some context, and let me try and give what I call a decade context. If before 2015, the economy was growing, but of course it was growing at the back of strong oil prices, and it was going also after rebasing. We became the largest economy in Africa, so that was some good aspect of that trajectory. And but by 2015, we started to have what I call declining oil prices, which actually started in 2014, and it continued until 2015 and even until 2016. But let me tell you 2 or 3 things that was wrong, or let me say the weaknesses of the strong economic growth that we had in the decade to 2015. One was that the economy was not, the exports of the economy was not diversified. That was the first one. And the second one was that even though the economy was growing, it was not providing adequate jobs for the youth that were coming out of our schools. And of course, the third point, which is also very, very important, is even though the economy itself was diversified, government revenue was not diversified. So those were the 3 weaknesses at that point. Okay. But by 2015, started to have declining oil prices, like I said, started in 2014, and that contributed to the recession that we had in 2016. Although there are some other factors, but I mean, you cannot take away the fact that declining oil prices actually contributed to that recession. So where are we now? We've come out of that recession. I mean, that's great. But as you rightly said, the economic growth that we've had since 2017 is very, very weak. And let me give you the context when I say it's very, very weak. When you're growing 2%, 1.9%, 1.5%, yes, that is some level of growth. But if you compare it to the growth of the population, so we are not having the kind of growth that is making Nigeria richer. So in this context, we have a fragile, weak recovery. It's recovery, thankfully, but it's still very, very fragile, as you said. And this time, we have even mounting unemployment. So where we are now is that we are recovering, but we're recovering very, very slowly.
2 things you said. You talked about, oil prices and the fact that the government revenue wasn't diversified as such, before 2015. We don't know if it has been diversified now, considering the fact that the government has made a lot of talk about diversification and how we need to look at other sources on the back of weak oil prices. I
mean, there's no doubt about it. You can't diversify you can't diversify government revenue just in a matter of 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, let's be realistic. You can't do that. However, I think one of the best things that has happened in the last 4 years is that tax has become a very concrete issue in Nigeria. What do I mean by that? It's not just the level of the revenue that they have collected, but also in the terms that they have expanded the tax base, meaning that some people that were not paying tax before were now paying. So if you actually consider that, okay, in 2018, we had about 5 trillion taxes collected by FIROS in a very, very struggling economy. So that is something that we should actually commend the administration for. So that is the positive. We had diversifying government revenue, but not at a scale and the progress that I'm sure many people would like to see yet. Yes.
Yeah, but also looking at other revenues, I mean, they wanted to move away from oil. Yeah. They wanted oil to be like the backup. They wanted to look at
absolutely
agricultural produce. Are we making progress in that regard?
Yes, I mean, there's always progress, and I'm happy. I mean, the progress that we are making in terms of agriculture. I mean, of course, when you have declining income, I mean, there are substitution effects anyway. So we've had to look inwards. I mean, when we had less income, especially in dollar terms. So we've had to look inwards. So we've seen some progress on agriculture, and we've seen some very unique policies on agriculture. I mean, like the Hancock Borrowers program. I mean, I think that is something that is good because, one, you're subsidizing credit to people that are actually producing in the economy. So that is something that is positive. The second thing is that you are subsidizing people what are called producers. So it's not a waste. And also you are subsidizing agriculture, which has a very great impact in terms of food production and in terms of reducing poverty. So in terms of that policy is a very, very good policy, yes. And I'm sure it's expanding agricultural production.
Well, I've seen something on our screen now talking about, you know, the contribution of different sectors to the GDP and seeing what role each particular sector has been playing. I think that oil is still seems to be the strongest contributor to our GDP. If this agricultural sector is indeed making as much progress as we would like, or as we're seeing the progress, how come it is not impacting the unemployment rate?
I mean, the nature of agriculture, I mean, let's get one thing straight about agriculture. Agriculture, the value, or let me say the importance of agriculture in any economy is, one, in terms of actually food production. That is the first thing. But in terms of productivity, agriculture as a sector does not deliver significant productivity over time. You know, it's usually very, very gradual. So that is why most countries still protect their agricultural sectors, whether it's in the US or like last week, if you watch the Indian case, I mean, they're protecting the farmers. I mean, like in Nigeria, all these subsidies that are about protecting our farmers. The reason they do that, the economic sense there is to try and to expand food production and keep food prices low. That is the key importance of agriculture, or focus on agriculture. But if you're expecting agriculture to deliver significant increases in income over time, it's not going to do that.
Let's really go to Lagos now and take some questions.
Well, Dr. Okiti, if I could just follow up on some of your submissions on the Anchor Borrowers program. I mean, looking at this, I see the CBN was saying, as at the end of November 2018, a total of 902,489 farmers participated in the program, 700,000 of which were rice farmers. But then, upon checks, I found out that as at sometime in August 2017, a certain Professor Daneji, who was the MD of Kano State Agric and Rural Development Authority, said that about 906 million naira was disbursed to farmers. Only 6 million had been refunded, so 900 million had not been refunded. So he was lamenting the fact that some of them had not paid back. So as good as the project, the ABP may seem, do you think we've overcome this challenge of farmers not paying back such that others can benefit moving forward?
Absolutely not. I mean, I'm sure the central bank will readily admit that we have not overcome that problem. However, I think we have to contextualize these things. It's very, very important to subsidize farmers because they are providing an important role in the economy. As I said before, one, in expanding food production, and two, that has implications for reducing poverty. However, I think we need better systems in order to ensure that farmers pay back the credit that they collect over time. And another weakness that I have seen in most of the credit, especially the one from the central bank, and there are quite a number of them. The Hancock Borrowers, yes, is the one in the last 3 years, but there are quite a number of interventions from the central bank. I think one is that there is not enough transparency in relation to the issue that you have just raised, which is how much are the farmers paying back, how many farmers are actually paying back. So that is one. And I think there's also a cultural context. Most people, whether we like it or not, they see any intervention from government as just part of their own national cake. So I think we also need to change that context in order for us to make progress.
How would you suggest to do it? So it's changing that mindset.
I think one of the ways we can do it, that I think of, is that if you look at most of these policies, even the ones that started about 8 or 10 years ago, they don't have any definite period for them to end. So the span is actually not defined. You start these policies and you continue these policies. So we don't know when the policies will actually end. That's one. Then two, we don't know whether the objectives for setting up the policies have actually been achieved in the first place. So if you set up a policy and you have certain objectives, and you have a span, then we are able to measure that over time and see whether we are making the kind of progress that we set out at the start. And I think the third point, which is very, very important, is that it goes to show that credit to the agricultural sector is not the only thing they need. So we need a rather holistic approach to solving food problems in Nigeria. Yes, credit to the agricultural sector is important because they cannot borrow at the rate in which maybe traders borrow. But we need an holistic approach to this.